let's bring in a member of the Public Accounts Committee, Sam George. He actually raised this question when before the Sports Ministry gave us this amount that was put out. Well, you've received this particular, I think we should just clarify if you've actually received this particular letter from GBC giving you that clarity that you were seeking.
Good evening. I haven't received any letter yet, but I'm sure maybe it's been discussed. But I've seen the letter and declaration.
Does it provide some clarity then? At least we've been looking at the contract between the Youth and Sports Ministry and GBC in terms of how much exactly was supposed to be paid for the entire contract between GBC and the Sports Ministry.
It actually has made the case worse. The letter by the GBC. And I've been listening in on the conversation you and Evans have been having. I mean, it's a very difficult task when you try to smoothing out a very bad case. There is no post-facto rationalization you will do or the ministry will do that will change the fact that the contract you reference, the contract that you have read, that you say you intercepted, we all have a copy of that contract. It is clear in that contract what is due GBC. In that contract, it states explicitly that GBC is due 3.6 million US dollars. That's what the contract says. It doesn't say anything about a third party. In fact, in the obligations of the party, it is clear their fees. It is agreed that GBC would provide services in the amount of 3.6 million. It goes on to break all the conditions down, the scope of work. In fact, when you read the previous page where the scope of work is in the contract, all the things that we are told third parties were contracted to do, the contract says GBC will do same. Now, if the contract has been signed between Professor Amin Al-Hassan and on behalf of GBC and Honorable Mustafa Yusuf on behalf of the Ministry of Youth and Sports to pay GBC 3.6 million, have you seen any contract, service level arrangement between GBC and any third party? Have you seen any contract stipulating what those third parties are offering and how much they are being paid for that service? Have you seen any such contract? Have you also seen anything that disputes the fact that the minister said he paid in excess of 3 million? Now we know it's 3.6 million US dollars. Professor Amin this morning on his network said he only received $105,000 and that there was evidence to that effect. If that is the case, was the payment of the 3,495,000 made US dollars made directly from the ministry to those third parties without it going through GBC? Would that not be in flagrant disregard of the contract that they signed? And would that not be in contradiction of what the minister said? Because the minister did not say that in excess of 3 million was paid to GBC and subcontractors. He said it was paid to GBC. He spoke under oath. I repeated the words to him and asked him specifically, so you paid GBC in excess of 3 million? He said yes. He didn't say GBC and its subcontractors. So if GBC is also saying, well, we only received 105,000, where or who to whom was the 3,495,000 paid, and on what basis?
Really, the letter that I'm seeing from GBC, it looks like there's some confusion, really, because from what I see, part of it says of the total payments made for the games, GBC was only entitled to $105,000. Therefore, the statement that GBC was paid in excess of the 3 million US dollars comes as a surprise. Really, it appears that they received more than the $105,000, but it appears that only this $105,000 is their benefit.
Please don't introduce confusions into the minds of your listeners, because else that will be very mischievous. There is no such allusion. That allusion is yours that you are making. There is no such allusion to that in the statement that GBC authored.
But if you heard me, at least the statement that I'm reading to you says of the total payments made for the games, GBC was only entitled. I'm reading verbatim. Yes, I'm reading verbatim, Mr. George. It says of the total payment made for the games, GBC was only entitled to $105,000 US dollars.
No. So listen, you're trying to introduce mischievously a very and cunning confusion here.
How is that mischievous? How is that ungunning? This is the letter from the GBC to the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. George.
The statement you are reading says that of the total payments made.
It's not a statement. It's a letter to the Public Accounts Committee, Mr. George. Unfortunately, you say you have not seen the letter, but this is the letter to the Public Accounts Committee from the GBC I'm reading to you. I'm not introducing any mischief here.
No. So then stick to the contents of the letter. Don't introduce your own reading into it. It did not say that of total payments made to GBC.
You are not listening, Mr. George. I am reading verbatim the letter. I am not introducing my own interpretation.
If you will let me make my point, but if you have formed your opinion, then we can end the interview. But if you have not formed your opinion and you want to hear my opinion,
unfortunately, you want to listen to yourself, but not listening to me as well. I am just reading verbatim. I'm not introducing anything in here.
Listen, the letter you're reading says of the total payments made for the games. It did not say of total payments made to the GBC. And one of the critical points I'm raising is the fact that the contract was with GBC for 3.6 million. So if that 3.6 million will be paid, it would have to be paid to the GBC for any onward payments. You are suggesting in your question to me, and you can play it back. If you didn't realize that's what you did, that's what you did. That statement that of the total payments made for the games suggests that GBC received more than 105, but only 105 was meant for GBC. The statement does not say that. And I'm saying don't introduce that because that's not what the statement says. The point we must make here is very simple. The taxpayer has had $3.6 million of their money contracted to GBC. That money, we are told by the minister under oath, was paid in full to GBC. In full to GBC. Now, GBC Director General is telling the country that only 105,000 US dollars came to GBC. And I have listened to his video, his voice, and watched his video on his own network this morning. And when he was asked if he had evidence of the 105,000, he retorted that public monies are not paid in bags and that they are paid through the bank and that there's a bank trail. So you cannot suggest, remotely even, that this is monies that have been paid in a certain way. If they've been paid in any way, we must see the service level arrangements that authorize those payments to go from GBC to any third party. Then we need to ask ourselves, who are these third parties?
Okay, so the letter, Mr. George, the letter from GBC that I was quoting from also mentions that the technical production was outsourced as GBC did not have the equipment to produce the games. It goes on to mention the companies that they outsource these technical production to. That must have been brought to your attention as well.
That's contained in the letter.
Yes.
But the mere fact that GBC has stated that they outsource this to these three companies, have you seen any service level agreement that points to what the cost is for the services? What service did any of they just listed three companies. What did those three companies specifically do? In the contract that you have seen, that I have also seen, that contracts GBC, the scope of work and the duties of GBC are spelled out explicitly in that contract. So what portions of that contract did each of these three play? Does the statement tell you?
It talks about it, at least. It tells you about the technical production. It tells you, but they don't give any amount. I'm sure these are questions that we want to ask going forward, but it talks about the technical production. It tells us.
Technical production, what is technical production? What you're a media house. What is technical production? Is technical production the provision of cameras? Or the provision of the technical people to run the cameras? Or the live mixing of it? Technical production is a broad term. What specifically did they do to earn that amount? Look, you must be worried as a taxpayer that GBC as a state broadcaster signs a contract and third parties take 98% of the value of the contract and GBC gets only 2%. How were these subcontractors picked? Where did they come from? The Director General says that they have to take subcontractors because GBC did not have the cameras and the equipment. I don't believe that GBC did not have the technical expertise. The issue was...
That's what GBC is explaining. They say that they were to supervise the technical production teams that were going to bring into the country their own production equipment and to undertake the production of the African Games. At least this is a letter from the GBC.
Listen, I'm saying to you, if you have $3.5 million to pay third parties to get the technical equipment that you needed for the production, could GBC not have procured those equipment and own them now after the games? Who are these third parties? On what basis were they chosen? How were they paid? Clearly, the payment did not go to GBC.
Okay.
Because Professor Amin Al-Hassan's statement, only 105,000 came to him. So how was the 3.495 million disbursed?
Am I sensing, Mr. George, that you even doubt what GBC is putting out? You think there's more to it than meets the eye?
GBC has just put out a bunch of words. Did not put out any evidence.
Okay. Well, we'll see how it goes. And I'm sure that definitely Mr. George will definitely raise this issue again. And since GBC has now written to the Public Accounts Committee on this matter, Evans, it appears we'll hear more on this particular clash between the GBC and the Sports Ministry. And now that the Public Accounts Committee is in the middle of all this, we'll get to the bottom of it.